Amen. Very much, Rebecca, for helping us with the prayer. So, what's this?
I'm sorry, Elvis, you broke up. We didn't catch that.
Alright, guys, so we are live. And so are we questions so that we can internet connection is guys to see the questions I've been asking so that it will be easy for us to discuss.
Mine are open.
On the chat box.
Whom do you want to ask about the employment at will and the exceptions? Okay, we've got them open. How do you want us to proceed?
Of course. Okay. Employment at will is a company has any reason to let you go without a warning. Oh, it's one.
Exceptions.
Oh, and the exceptions. So there's the breach of implied contract, which is if there's a contract and it's implied that you're supposed to be there for a long period of time and they let you go, then you can be in trouble for that. And then the covenant of good faith in dealing, it's the employer tries to avoid doing what they agreed to do by terminating an employee. And then there's the violation of public policy, which I don't even know what. God. You just go, Rebecca.
From my understanding, there's the breach of implied contract, the violation of public policy, and the breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. The breach of implied contract basically states that employers have the right to discharge even if there are oral contracts that exist. The breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing talks about, I'm not exactly sure. I had a hard time understanding that one. And the violation of public policy talks about how employees can be terminated because of an unlawful act. That's my understanding. You have anything to add, Christine?
That was what I was trying.
You have anything to add, Elvis? We're both correct.
Yay.
But what exactly is the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing?
I think, did you figure it out? Because I have an example.
Kind of. But give me your example. It might help explain it better.
So like, someone I met on my mission, she was working for the state, and after 5 years, they give you a severance package, and they let her go a month before she would get her severance package. So that would be something that they agreed to give her a severance package after 5 years, and in order to get out of paying for the severance package, they fired her.
Well, that's not
To
fair.
implied covenant, yeah, of good faith or fair dealing. So that was an example of something like that, where they're getting a reward, and to get out of paying that, they fire you.
Oh. That
So like a
makes more
retirement?
sense there.
Yeah, so that's an example of a breach of implied
Okay.
covenant. Yeah, so when you look at that, that's what you can think of.
So they say one thing and then fire you before they have to do it.
Yes, so that you'll keep doing, because she
Gotcha.
worked for child services, so it was really, really hard on her, but she wanted to stay for the severance, so she continued to work for the 5 years until she got it.
Got it.
Then she didn't get it, so.
That's not right.
It wasn't right. It wasn't right. She was very upset. So that's why that law is there, though, so that they can protect from things like that.
It's a good law to have.
I can hear you guys, so I have to type. So you guys may have to be patient when you're white typing or when you're
So you want us to continue and you might disappear for a little while? Okay. The case of about Terry and Phil? Step 2. Okay.
Yep.
So the first question is, what impact does Terry and Phil have on the company's bottom line? I feel like neither one of them have much of an impact whatsoever. So in my opinion, they can both be dismissed. But Phil,
Yeah, if anything, they're hurting. You know what I mean? If anything, they're hurting it.
they're hurting the company. Yeah, especially Terry, because he has no background whatsoever. He can't, and even after he was told how to, that he needed to make the decisions and stuff on his own, he still couldn't do it. That one got me. Let's see. However, with Phil, I don't feel that you can really dismiss him because of his illness, and they just barely rallied all around him and stuff. And he isn't as bad as Terry. He actually has some input into what's going on in the company.
Yeah, and he had some skills. It sounds like he's more like in the wrong department, wrong area, versus like he's a bad employee. Whereas Terry, it seems like he's just not fit for the job. So all his costs are costing the company money.
Yeah, and that's what this says. According to the manager, Terry makes no contribution, so all his salaries and benefits are pure cost. And a company that is only making $300,000 in a year, whereas Phil seems to be less of a financial viability. And I kind of feel like Terry was also there just because he was the scuba diver teacher of the CEO and a few other managers. So, based on what we've learned about employment at will and exceptions, what legal obligations could the manager have to Terry and Phil? So, Christine, what obligations do you think the manager has toward Terry?
I didn't really notice any full obligations. You know, there's been an implied that I don't even know if it's an implied contract because it's probably in a contract. I don't know. They didn't really talk about it. So I feel that
there's the possibility of that, right?
Yeah. There's a possibility of the contract, but I think if given, the proper documentation, which it seems like they have, they have the performance rating of 2.5, and they have their PIP meetings and stuff. So I think since they have all that there wouldn't be any real legal problems if they can prove that he wasn't performing up to standard,
Right. And they can't dismiss him because of age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. All that you've said. And with Phil, I guess the legal obligation that the manager has toward Phil. Let's go back to Terry for just a minute. Let's see. Elvis says, I think the manager has the right to fire Terry without any legal problems, especially if he's not performing. Definitely. He's definitely not performing because he's always being told what to do and how to do it.
And they document it, so the documentation will protect them.
Right. And even the coworkers are telling him what to do and how to do it. And that's not even their job. It's Terry's job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with Phil, they can't dismiss him because of his disability.
Yeah, it would come back as, we don't want to pay his insurance. We don't want to pay for him to be absent all the time. So they have to be really careful because of his disability.
Right.
And his recent illness.
And plus, they all rallied around him and helped support him with his illness and helped him do various other things even outside the company. Like, didn't they go plant his garden? Yeah.
And so it would hurt the company morale,
It would.
So we help this person out and then we just throw him out when he's healed,
Yeah.
So.
But he was warned that they would get a replacement for him during his time of illness, wasn't he?
Yes.
So when he did come back, that person was still there, so Phil didn't really do anything per se.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they
So
couldn't
they
fire him.
yeah. So they need to either find him a new position or,
Elvis says it will be harsh to fire Phil because of his illness. He has some skills and has contributed in some way. He has, and he tries and puts forth the effort and stuff. And if he doesn't know it, he goes and finds out how to do it. That's the legal obligation. He probably needs to be transferred to a department that suits his skill set. Yeah, but isn't he within a contract right now, and so they can't transfer him yet? That's how I understood it.
that might be it. That sounds like an issue. But I think with the contract, you kind of have to, you can reword the contract. He would just have to be sign a new one. He'd have to agree to the movement.
Okay.
So, because you can replace the contract with a new contract, but it has to be all parties sign it and agree and everything there.
So I could get transferred to a different department.
Yes, if he follows the correct paperwork and things like that, he could be transferred.
Okay. Let's see. Ethical obligations. What ethical obligations does the manager have toward Terry and Phil?
Terry's liked by all the upper management, so by firing him, she could be in trouble with them. She wants to still have her career, and if she fires him, then they're going to be pretty mad at her. Like, they came in and were like, why were you going to give Terry this score? Why are you going to do this? What are you doing? He's our friend. So I think that's an issue, like she may become unpopular among the people for firing him.
Yeah, because he's well liked, and she mentions that she's kind of afraid to give him the 2.5, whatever it is. What is it? The 2.5 rating. Yeah, the 2.5 ratings due to that, but that is really what he's earned. So I feel like she should go ahead and give it to him.
And then it's hard because of the previous manager. The previous manager was giving him a 3.5, and he gets a new manager, and it's, it reflects, is she the problem or is he the problem?
Right. And he was expecting a 3, because he knew he wasn't quite up to par. But yeah. And with Phil, I guess, is thinking that he is getting a promotion because everybody's rallying around him and helping him during his illness and stuff.
Yeah. And they're probably talking about, he needs a new job to fill in his old job, and so he thinks he's moving up, but he's actually not performing.
Right.
So.
But she was gonna dismiss him as well, but right when she was gonna do it, he got ill, so now she can't do it.
Yeah. And I think that would be really hard on all the employees. We'd talked about that previously, that terminating him would be hard on the company morale. And, as we were reading the different layoff paperwork, it says make sure to be aware of the other employees and their feelings.
Mm-hmm. Elvis says it will be ethically wrong to fire Phil because especially after rallying around him during his illness. Yeah. So yeah, she even went the extra mile and had everybody rally around him.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely impact the morale of the rest of the employees if she went ahead and did that. You want to add anything else, Elvis, before we go on? No or yes? Go on. Okay, I'm assuming his response is to go on. So the analysis of companies' HR practices.
Mm-hmm.
How well is the company in the case doing with its HR practices generally?
I feel that they have good concepts, but not good implications. You know, like they have good ideas, like the rating systems, but their PPIs are lacking because it's more a step towards firing than a step towards improvement. So that's kind of where
Yeah,
I see it is they have the right concepts, but they're not applying them in the right way.
yeah. I think the PIP is. I think with the PIP, you should allow them to correct their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
not say, "Hey, here's a PIP, and within a year you're going to be fired."
Yeah, which is kind of what they're doing. They're not trying to help. They're just trying to, cover them and be like, well, you have a year, either get it together or we're firing you. So I think that that's the general practice is they have good ideas, they're just not using them right.
So, do you feel like they're giving good feedback to their employees so that they don't get on that PIP?
Hmm. I don't think so because I think it's just like goes straight into the rating and then they put them on PIP. If you're under 3.0, you're on a PIP. You know what I mean? And there's no, for Terry and Phil's sake, there was no previous help given there. You
There
know?
wasn't. And think about when Terry was hired, how many of the managers actually said no?
Yeah,
But
they all
the
said no.
CEO, the CEO overstepped him and said, or overruled him and said, "Hey, he's on. I don't care."
Yeah.
Elvis says, "I think they have a good HR ideas, but their application is shallow. A good example is hiring Terry, even though he failed the interviews." Yeah, just what we talked about. Not all the managers give good feedback. Uh, Terry's boss did.
I think it's current, not as past.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think it's the past one. Isn't he self-employed too as the scuba diver?
Yes. So he's used to his own business and he comes here and doesn't have the professional. And I think, that hiring thing is a big issue, like they were all no, yet he got on. So that shows that, yeah, you have a human resource department, you have all these procedures, but the CEO can do what he wants.
Right. So perhaps the CEO should go back to training classes and learn how to hire. uh, Not all managers give good feedback. Okay, I did that one. Let's see. How do they hire the personnel?
From what I can tell, it was like a test and a committee.
And Terry didn't pass either one, did he?
Yeah, I don't think he passed either one. And so even though he didn't pass either one, they hired him on. And that is an issue in hiring because let people on if they're not going to pass your procedures. If you're going to have a procedure, you got to follow it.
Right. And Phil, I think, passed the interviews and, well, actually, he was a transfer from the other company.
Yeah, he was a direct transfer from the other company.
So they couldn't do much about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do employees, do employees get a clear picture from the company of how they are performing?
I think they attempt.
Or do you think they
give them a ranking. They give them a ranking, but there's no from what I can tell, there's no other feedback. It's just at the year mark you get a ranking, and if your ranking's below, then you're on list to be fired.
Okay. However, this manager basically tells them straight up what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, she does.
And some people don't like her for that.
Yeah, because they're used to Raquel, who didn't do that. You know? So a lot of people she worked with Raquel, and they're used to her style.
Right. And we talked about PIPs and what they were used for.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed that they weren't using it correctly. Do you think this manager can make good decisions about these two individuals, or does she seem to be influenced by biases that will be hard to overcome?
I do think there's a bit of bias. You know,
there is.
Yeah.
But I also think that she can do what she needs to do, regardless of that bias.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the PIP. Elvis says it's supposed to be for helping employees to improve, but is rather being used as a medium of firing people. Yes. I think they should get rid of it altogether. And this manager basically told Terry, I believe, that she was just going to forget about the PIP and work with him if he wanted to be worked with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she didn't give him a time limit as to when to correct it, right?
Yeah, I don't think she gave him a time limit.
Time looking. Oh, he was supposed to look for another job.
Mm.
And she'd help him along the way and forget about the PIP.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice of her. Are we ready to continue on to step 4? Do you have anything to add, Elvis? I think we have a small delay here. Step 4. Okay, Christine, have you decided what the manager should do with Terry and Phil?
I think.
Let's talk about Terry first.
Terry first? Okay.
Terry first.
With Terry, she should give him the 2.5. He does deserve it, and he does need to be heading out of the company unless he improves, you know? Tell him that, hey, your performance is not where it needs to be, and you need to either step up or leave because he's not up to par. He's just not up to par. And he's been not up to par for years, and he's just costing the company money. So she does need to say, hey, this is your last step, and if you need to look for other jobs, look for other opportunities, do that. But know that you need to either improve or get out, you know?
But what about all the other employees who love him? Do you think they'll retaliate against her?
I think they'll retaliate to an extent, but I also think everyone does know of his abilities. Yes, they like him, but they can see why she's going to do it. You know what I mean? Because they all get harassed by him all the time. Like, he's always coming up and, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? And they all know that he's not doing what he's supposed to. They know that she's trying to give him small tasks, big tasks, whatever, and he just can't do them. So I think that originally they might be a little annoyed, but then they'll realize, hey, it's time for him to go somewhere that fits more his personality and his style.
So in firing Terry, do you think the other employees would agree with that?
Some of them. I think the only ones that I think really have a problem with it are the main managers. You know, I think his coworkers would be okay with it because they see it. And, you know, if the main managers really have an issue with it, they'll step in and he won't be fired. You know what I mean?
Right.
She can only suggest it and they'll be the ones that end up doing it. So if they don't want to at the end of the day, and they're the only ones that are going to have an issue with it, she'll still be stuck with them. So
I think the main one who would have the issue with it is the CEO of the company.
yeah,
And he can overrule the manager and say, hey, you're not firing him, correct? Unless
yeah.
she can absolutely tell him exactly the reasons why he needs to be fired and have backup too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you know, I think everyone will be okay with it except the CEO. And if the CEO really has a problem with it, then he can say, nope, you're keeping Terry.
Yeah, I think if she points out, though, all the costs that he's costing them, he might
Yeah.
double think about it.
Yes.
Okay. Elvis says, sorry, my eyes are starting to water again. I think the manager should have a one-on-one discussion with Terry and tell him his performance is below par. He should be given the option of seeking employment in a different company or in a different department. Phil should be transferred to a department that suits his skill set. If the CEO really wants the company to be profitable, he will allow Terry to be fired. You got a good point there. Excuse me for just a moment while I go get a Kleenex. Sorry about that. My eyes start watering and I can't see. So are there any other creative options that might work in firing Terry?
You know, I always think that there is different capacities for a person. Just because they're not skilled, you can find something for them to do. You know, like I know maybe they're not good at reading and writing. We always need a cleaning person. You know what I mean? Like there's always alternates. He may not be happy with the alternates, but there's always an alternative in the company. So if he, you know, can't find a different position in a different department, he can always be the cleaner. You know, he might not like it, but that's, you know, there's always something like that.
Yeah.
No, there's always something like that that could be used. So it may not be his ideal, but he doesn't fit the company's ideal. So he kind of has to decide there what he wants to do.
So basically she should work with him and try and figure out where he could fit, right?
Yes. Yes,
together
work with
they
him and
could-
see where he could fit.
Together they could figure out where he fits. Yeah, very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Elvis
He
says,
could be
I
a
don't
cleaner.
think so. Terry is. He says, Terry is not a good fit for the job. It was stated in the case that Terry had no technical skills and the job requires a lot of technical skills. Yeah, therefore he could go become a janitor, right?
There's always the option. I'm just saying. We had a girl that just stunk at all the other jobs, and where'd they put her? They put her in cleaning. And now she's just the best cleaner we've ever had. So, you know, there's always hope. So.
Okay, Phil. I think we basically decided we can't fire Phil, but rewrite his contract so that he can be put in a different department.
Yes.
And back to Terry. Elvis says he should just go back to scuba diving. I think he should. That seems to be his passion. So, what do you think about Phil, Elvis? I don't think there's really any alternatives in firing Phil because of his illness.
Hmm. So we just need to find him a new position within the company. His position was kind of taken. He was sub-performing. So, and a lot of people rallied around him. So he should be able to get a new position quite easily. They all know him.
Okay,
and they should be able to.
Everybody within his department's rallying around him. I don't think it ever really mentioned if the whole company was rallying around him.
I think they would know, though.
Yeah,
they at least know
would.
About it.
Departments talk, right?
Yeah. Well, even like shifts talk, you know what I mean? Like, I'm on second shift, but I know all the drama of first and third. So shifts talk, departments talk, they all talk. So they'll know, and they'll be, and the manager says she likes Phil, he just isn't good for her department. And so she can vouch for him too in other departments. Be like, hey, he is a really good worker and he is a really good person. I just don't have a spot for him in my department.
Okay. So maybe promote him in a different department.
Yes.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Elvis? Before he says, Bill has some skills. He should just be fired to a different department that has a position that suits his skills. Though I doubt if he will be accepted because of his bad attitude. Did Phil have a bad attitude? I don't remember much of an attitude either. Are we ready to advance to step 5 and figure out what happened to these 2 employees? We'll see if we were on the right page in firing them. Okay. So, do you want me to just read this real quick?
Yes, that'd be good.
Give you a summary?
Summary would be good too.
Okay. So, she decided to give Terry the 2.5, even though she was very scared about doing it. So she sat down in a performance review and basically said, I'm going to give you a 2.5. And Terry's like, wait a minute, I thought I would be getting a 3.0. And he knew he wasn't going to get the 3.5. And he wasn't happy about getting the 2.5. But she talked to him and explained that they've hired a lot of people who are real superstars and they're getting their job done. As she says, I reminded him that on interviews, my no hire rate was about half of what most people's were, and they now have really good people on the team. And he acknowledged that that was true. And she asked him about different employees that they've recently hired and asked him whether they were superstars or not. And he said they were. And she asked him what he had compared against the other people that she's hired. And he said he didn't have the needed qualities. And that he didn't want to be the weakest link on the team because it wasn't good for his career. So she said, I'm going to give you a 2.5, and that gets you on a PIP, but she's not going to put him on the PIP because she thinks it's disrespectful, and reminds him that a lot of people who get on the PIP is basically it's a half hour to clean out their desk before the PIP is even finished.
Yes. Oh.
What was that? Anyway, she said that she didn't want him to go down that path because she really likes him and would skip the PIP. She says, I want to help you find a better job in the company, and if you can't find one, then why don't you go out with a party, a big bang, with your head held high so that you're never on a PIP. And she didn't give him a time limit as to how long to complete the task, and he says, perhaps 3 months should be long enough, and if not, then you can just go out with a bang. And she told the boss what she was doing, and Terry spent time taking a look for another job, but everyone would go and ask his peers about him, and none had any good feedback for Terry, so he couldn't get another job in the company. So they had a big party for him, and he decided to go back to scuba diving. Let's see, which was his real passion. But eventually he got a job in an engineering company and was promoted to manager. He's doing a great job there because it's pure engineering, math and equations, which didn't require any analytical decision making. And they still keep in touch because of what happened. With Phil, it would have looked like they were firing him because he had been sick, and you just don't do that. And they had a replacement for him. So basically, he was just an extra person on the team. And it took more time to manage him, but that was okay. And he didn't get promoted. And he got 3.0s on his reviews. It says, so, and the boss had a vendetta against him. So the CEO had a problem with him, and he decided to leave the soft goods team when this manager left the company, and he moved to another team. And the only reason it took him was because he was a free slot. He ended up on the international team, which was the only team which would take him because no one wanted to work on the international team. And basically they took their product and turned it into a French or German friendly product. And eventually he got diagnosed a year later with inoperable brain cancer, and he had to leave the company for good, and he died not too long after that.
Natalie.
So in some ways we were correct.
Mm-hmm.
She did go through and give Terry the 2.5, and I think she did a pretty good job about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the questions are, how did the manager do well? What did she do that was effective? And what did she not do? Or what did she do that was not effective?
I thought she was pretty effective, covered all the issues, told them what was going on, and gave them good solutions. I think the only issue with that was with Phil, that he moved after she left. So she was able to work with him, but the next manager was not, So it was kind of like she kept a weak link, and the next manager couldn't deal with it.
Well, no, he moved when she moved.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like Phil decided that when she would move in the company, he would move to a different company. But it also sounded like nobody really wanted him either.
Yeah. So she kept him, but he wasn't needed.
He wasn't the weakest link, though.
Yeah.
He just didn't ever advance. That sounds like he never got past these 3.0s.
Yeah.
Elvis is in agreement with us that she handled the situation with Terry and Phil very well. We ready to go on to step 6?
Yep.
You have anything to add, Elvis? Yeah, she did keep Phil, but she hired someone else who was more competent. But she did that when he was ill to keep the company projects and stuff going. And she couldn't get rid of him. Either one of them. Anything else, or can go to 6? Okay. What can we learn from this case about making decisions about termination? I kind of feel
But
like
it's
it's a
not a
very
set thing.
hard. It's not a
Yeah.
set thing, and it's a very hard process to do too. You know what you should be done, that you have obstacles set in front of you, such as the CEO getting on your case about firing somebody just because he's an acquaintance or a good friend.
And you got to think about the employees and how they'll respond. And it's not as simple as you performed low, I'm firing you. It's okay, so if I fire this person, who's it going to affect? How is it going to affect the company? Is it really in the long term going to help or hurt? I think that's kind of what I learned from it. Is it's just very, you don't know until it's done almost. You don't know what it's going to affect. So purely on numbers and situations, you have to look at everything else around it.
Yeah, I think that would be a very hard decision to make, because it not only affects you, but everybody around you. Elvis says, termination decisions are difficult. It is important to consider the legal implication and the impact it will have on the company before the decision is made. Yeah, I don't think I ever really sat and thought about all the steps that went into it, that there's your financial obligations, your legal obligations, your ethical obligations, the feedback from your employees, your coworkers, your boss itself. There's just a lot of different implications that it entails.
Yeah, and I think with this case, it was a little easier because they were both low performers. But I think about what I think would be maybe harder is behavioral termination. Like they might be a really high performing employee, but they might be getting into fights. Like there's issues like that I think would make it even more complicated.
Yeah,
you won't even have the data.
Their attitude really goes into effect there too.
Yeah, so I think that'd be something that I'd be interested to look into, that is because both of these were low performers, but looking into someone with an attitude would be fun too. But
I guess you got to be careful with that because it can backfire.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Elvis? We got one more question. The question is, think about what they have learned that they could apply in a future situation. So basically, how can we apply this in a future situation?
I think, we don't know where we're going to be career-wise, but at some point maybe we'll be a manager or something. And, to think about more than just the productivity, because a lot of times we think about the bottom line and we think about the money, but there's more to it than just the money. And if we don't consider the other factors, we can risk being in trouble legally or being in trouble with all the coworkers. You could fire one person, but it could result in other people quitting. Fire their best friend, they could quit. Your top performer could quit. You could be in trouble with the CEO. You could have all these other issues.
What do you think, Elvis? One thing he learned is from the cases to apply is giving feedback to bluntly without pretense, just like Terry's manager did. Yeah, I have to agree with that. I also think you have to gather and look at all the facts to make sure that you are covering all bases in the reason for firing a person. Elvis agrees with that. Is there anything else we need to cover?
not for the discussion. I think we end the broadcast and we can talk about doohickeys real quick. Is that usually how we do it?
Yes, usually. Okay, you need to end the broadcast first, Elvis.